Hello everybody, this is Maniac for Bricks, and you're not having deja vu. There have been 2 times in the past 12 hours that I've tried to do this live stream to finally get this to rest, and unfortunately both times had some kind of catastrophic computer issues I could not figure out at the time, and both of those have been basically deleted. So hopefully this one goes well. As I say that, I'm probably jinxing it. Either that or my computer doesn't want to talk about Bionicle again. I don't know which. But I did read some of the comments from one of the previous ones, so thank you, Doc and Brixar, for for tuning in for some of them. I thought it was really funny of how Brixar said that he had the Lava Chamber Gate, and because it was incomplete, he wound up buying multiple copies of it or just buying more parts for it. I swear, I've had that happen with a set from Aqua Raiders. I think I bought 3 copies of the set because every single one of them was incomplete. It was Aqua Base Invasion. There were some parts missing to it. Two copies of one of the Arctic sets back in the early 2000s. It was like a polar base or something like that. And again, incomplete. And it's still missing parts to it. So I'm not going to buy a third copy of the set. I'd rather just get the individual pieces by this point. It's no longer necessary. So let's see if I can finally put this thing down and go over what I've collected in Bionicle, what I would still like to collect, and then do a little synopsis later on of the white whales or the main things I would go back for. Now, there are some things that I have actually wanted to get again. Like, I already had them as a kid. I still have the parts, but they're scattered across the cosmos, and it's too much time for me to try to find everything. And for all I know, some pieces might actually be missing or broken. I think 1 or 2 sets have broken pieces that I would need to, replace them anyways. So I'm working towards that. So we're actually going to go back into this, and hopefully this will be the final copy of it, because I don't want to do this live stream a billion times either. One thing I didn't mention previously, the Ultimate Creatures accessory set. If I recall correctly, I think this was they had several types of these where it's like a big tub of pieces that you could build a couple different figures. Sometimes they were just complete sets just packed into them, so you could build a whole bunch of figures right out of the box with them. This one, if I recall correctly, is the one that I grew up with, and I remember that explicitly because I looked through Bricklink and the parts inventory, and it had a green hockey base, which no other Bionicle set had. It was not incorporated into any other Bionicle sets whatsoever. It's just they made it at the time, and LEGO Sports just died off, and then they had this extra inventory, so they threw it in. That's at least my theory of it. I don't know for sure, but that's how I got the green hockey base. I remember it as a kid. I tried building something using it, and then I looked at the set, or I looked at the model when it was finished, and I realized I used nothing about it. Like, I could literally take the hockey base off of the rest of it, and it would not have changed a thing. It was amazing. But I'd still like to use it at some point. I think it would be hilarious if I could actually incorporate it into something later down the road. I have never seen anyone else use it, though, but it would be fun to come back to. I think it would also be fun just for... That's one thing I think I can piece together is this accessory set, because they are definitive pieces. They're very defined. Like, I can tell exactly what's in here, and I know that I have bulk of them in general, so it wouldn't be hard to rebuild it per se. I don't know if it's worth a review because, again, it's a parts pack more than a set, but it would be fun to see the potential of it, kind of like the LEGO Classic sets. So, in a way, I guess I could say I own that, and I just never marked it as such. Technically, I don't own Good Guy. I just rebuilt him out of spare parts. I've done that with a couple Bionicle sets where it's just like, oh, they're common pieces. I can just build it out of what's here. This one, ashamedly, kind of want it with the whole package more than just the thing itself. I mean, I can build that no problem, but it's just funny to me of having it with the Duracell batteries. I never would have expected that. I don't remember that back in the day, but neato either way. So where I left off on the first live stream about it was 2006. That's why I'm still in here, even though the title says 2007, but this is more of a recap of a couple things. So this was probably one of the last years that I actually did the combo models. From what I recall, I did the combo models of some of these figures up here and these figures here. I can remember going to my grandparents' house with the figures and building them into the combo models. The Toa and Ica I knew about from not only the magazines and the comics, but I had actually seen them in person at an event at PNC Bank Arts Center in Holmdel, New Jersey. I don't know what the name of the event was, but it was a large kid-based event that had all different kinds of sponsors and vendors and all different kinds of things. Lego was only one small table at that event, and surprisingly, one small table just with Bionicle stuff, as far as I remember. So, unless I find more information later, I've been trying to look for it. I've been trying to research it for the past couple months, and unfortunately, nothing has turned up yet. But hopefully, I can find more information about it at some point. Because they basically, from what I remember, had these figures brand spanking new in summer of 2006. That they had the figures built, they had the instructions, and they had just big mess of pieces. So you could build your own figure out of it. You couldn't take anything home, as far as I can remember. Otherwise, I would have definitely had these. So it was cool getting that hands-on experience about it for something that just came out. But again, I don't remember if it had anything else Lego at that event, and it would be weird if they didn't. So there's that. As far as getting the figures back in the day, I only had 2 of these growing up, Huki and Matoro, and I had them, of course, with canisters and everything, like brand new in the package, so I still had all that intact. They were really fun. I did like the light up features on each of their weapons. They're pretty standard builds. Only like a couple things change between any of the 6 figures, other than the weapons and colors and the masks themselves. Sometime after that, like many years after that, I got Toa Kongu, and I had him with the canister, and I also wanted to complete the rest of them. I also did get Toa Jaller and Toa Holly. I think I got them before Kongu, and I remember getting these at a yard sale. Someone from my high school had a yard sale near me, and I picked up these figures, like just the figures themselves, for like $5. I think they were complete, or like near complete. They had a few other Bionicle figures there, and I remember doing a haul video about it on YouTube, so it was definitely after 2012 when this happened. Probably after 2013, actually. So it was just those figures, and I think eventually I would get the canisters for them. I'd have to check the actual collection, the physical, like, in the bins, everything, of completion status or whatever. But some of this, it doesn't matter as much at the moment. I'm just like, the figures first, we'll worry about the rest later. And Toa Naparo was the last one that I got, but he was honestly my favorite. I love the design for him. He actually does stand out a bit more from the rest, despite being a darker color scheme, because he has a shoulder-mounted weapon. He has these claw hands that no other figure has, and I'm honestly not sure if there's a reason that he has them, but it's great. It just looks great with him. And you have the ability to hold the weapon in either one hand or 2 hands. So there's a little bit more going on with this figure. I enjoy this one a lot. And I've actually seen that they have a Halloween costume for him. I'm like, I know it's a kid's costume, but I could take the armor pieces that are from the costume itself, or I really just wanted to rip the thing apart and just make an adult version of the costume. That would be kind of fun, but I've been sitting on that for a long time, over a year at least, and I'm still not sure about doing it, because I don't know. I don't even know if it's a rare costume or anything like that. I remember getting Brutaka, I want to say through eBay. It was either eBay or Bricklink, but I think it was eBay, about $30, and he was a decent build. He was pretty well-to-do for a Titan figure, had a lot of great detail without being too bulky. He's got some great height to him as well, and yeah, I like a lot of ways that the parts were used in here as well. Axon, I never owned him, but I would like to get him at some point, so he's definitely on the higher end of the wanted list. And he's been on the wanted list for a long time because he's expensive. For some reason, he's like $50, $60 from what I've seen on average, sometimes even more. So I haven't pulled the trigger on him quite yet, but I've also thought with some of these larger figures, like if it's really expensive, I might be able to piece them together. Like that might be an easier option for it, because I know I have some of these pieces. I have some of these as spares, but Scooby, what is it? Never a dull moment. Okay, he was just a mailman. Don't mind him. And speaking about things on a leash, there's a terrible segue. He's indoors, but it's fine. Speaking of things on a leash, Vizon and Fenrak. I got him on eBay. I want to say about $30 as well at some point, like years and years ago. And he did have the box with him, but boxes in Bionicle I don't really care as much for. Surprisingly, even less than Lego System. Like, as far as keeping the boxes or collecting them or whatever. They just don't do as much for me compared to canisters, which I think are actually really neat and sometimes functional, sometimes actually play into the story. Boxes are just boxes. So there's some Bionicle boxes that I still have just by chance, but I have thrown out ones like this one before, even when I got the set used. But it is a decent set. It's got some good posability here and there. Some areas I think could have been a bit stronger, but it would have also hyped up the price and parts ratio and all that stuff. But for what it is, it's fine. And I do like the unique build for Vizon himself as far as the torso build. It's actually pretty neat. As far as the playsets go, I only owned this one back in the day. And it's very clunky, but it does have good figures. That's the long and short of it. Like, this area is very top heavy. It's not easy to angle it and fire with it. Even though it has a good premise between them, it's not the kind of thing that I've wanted to go back and build. Let's put it that way. I've actually had this thing sitting in bins for years and years in separate parts. So, like literally just segmented parts of it, and then just took the whole thing out at some point because I was like, I'm not going to build this again. I'm not going to have enough interest to build this again. Lava Chamber Gate is one that I definitely want from this year. It has a great display value to it. I think it would look great on a shelf. It would be a way of getting all the other figures that I don't have from the other set, so that would be great to complete them for that year. It also would be nice to have them sitting up on the bridge itself as part of the display, and it looks like it has a lot of great play functions too, like the breaking bridge, these little gate things that come down. The lava surfboards, I could take it or leave it. Honestly, I don't care much for it, and again, it looks like it's a little too cumbersome to practically use or set up, but at least it's there. It's a function. So yeah, it definitely looks like a good display piece more than most. And the Praga Stronghold is just a little bit on the heavy side for me. It's not something that I'm completely intrigued about right now. It does have some good features here and there, but it's not something that I'm dying to get at this point. The Paraka, I got them all back in the day. This was in the January wave of 2006, and for some reason I only reviewed one on YouTube. I should probably have just... I wanted to do that for a long time, go back to review a bunch of Bionicle figures, even if I already did a video of them, but actually cover like the wave of them, because when you build one of these, you build fundamentally all of them, because they have very similar structure. So why not review them all at one time? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I do remember that the first time I saw these in person was I saw Hakan, and I believe it was Thok, but it could have also been Vizon. And I remember the first time that I saw these in person in Canister was at a Boy Scout function. It was like one of our meetings or something, and we had a toy drive. And of course, these were from December of 2005. That holiday season, releasing them early and then, given as donations. So obviously I wasn't going to take those because donations, but it was cool to see them in person and that they had a light up function in the, packaging, to see what they would look like before I got them in stores. So, it was just cool on its own. I do remember that my original Thok, however, had a broken foot. There was one of the two axles in the foot that broke, so I always had to place them in a separate way, so he's kind of jagged looking, which almost makes it a little more creepy, but I would like to get that replaced. I don't remember if I have an extra part to replace him with, but I know I have some of these as duplicates by nowadays. I don't remember if I do for him, though. And as far as anything else in here, they're mostly combo models, which I'm not interested in getting at this point. If he's not in Card House, I would just take the sets and just combine them because that's essentially what this is. Sometimes the Bionicle did this where they would just have a large box set with 3 sets packed into it and make comic book models out of that. And I owned one of those back from 2005. I got it as a gift for Christmas, Vobarak, which had 3 large sets, which nowadays, I, again, don't have the parts are scattered across the cosmos. I don't have the figures built, and I've been trying to get those back again, either building them again or just getting a second copy of each of them. And it's not always easy. So, good question here. Am I collecting them sealed or used? I'm not really interested in getting them sealed. It doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't really hold anything for me, and also, I'm gonna wind up opening it anyways. Even like most Lego sets in general, I don't care of getting them sealed, unless it's just from the store. Aftermarket, I don't mind if they're used. If they look dirty or they have something I need to clean up, I don't mind cleaning them up. If the pieces are there, the pieces are there. I've had some where, some needed cleaning, some were broken parts, some had glue residue on them because originally the set was glued, and I just have to work with it a little bit. But I don't mind as long as I can get to the end result. And I have definitely had some before that I needed to replace parts, but I'm not always like exclusive parts or anything like that. Darth Speedy and Sebastian Cortez also welcome to the stream. And what just happened? Yeah, I'm trying not to make it a deja vu thing. I just want to get through this because my internet kept kicking me out yesterday. I don't know why, so I'm just trying to get through this as best as I can. 2006 and 2007 were my favorite years for story. They were fun. They were very I wasn't in tune with the Sega art style at first in 2006, but it kind of grew on me over the next year or so in the comics. And that's where I mostly knew the story of any of the Bionicle sets in all these years was through the comics. I obviously watched the movies, but even though I had some of the early Scholastic books, I didn't read them all the way through. So I don't know a lot about that. I know that in the comics themselves, it would have a little advertisement where it's like, oh, there's a side story that happens in this book. Read this for more information, because they kind of cut in between things. You didn't have... That's one of the things I would say I absolutely do not like about Bionicle, is that while it has a lot of media presence, it has no one cohesive way to enjoy the story. Even Bionicle diehard fans, which I am not, I guarantee there are people way beyond me who know more about Bionicle, who know about the lore, who know more about everything, tenfold. There are some who even they have struggled with going through the whole story of it. Some of them will actually compile pieces from multiple media and try to retell it in order to make that more comprehensive. And I've actually been following one person, Zanybricks, on YouTube, who has a massive Lego collection in general, but also a massive, almost complete Bionicle collection. He actually has been uploading some of these Bionicle retellings on his YouTube channel, and I think one went out today, but I'm still a couple behind before I get to that. So, I do enjoy those. Especially for someone like me, who's a little rusty on details, but also didn't get the full story in the first place, even though I knew it since its launch, and tried to keep up with some things on it. So that's one thing I do want to emphasize here, is that I am not a diehard Bionicle fan, but I still know well enough over being a, I guess, casual. Am I a Bionicle? And I don't know what the proper term for it is, but I am a Bionicle fan that has grown up with it, that knows some things about it, has the general sense of the story and characters, just not the super in-depth stuff. Because there was one point where, even as far as media goes, they even went further where they're like, they have these website serials, and I didn't know a thing about them because I didn't pay attention to the website. Also, by that point, we'll talk about that. That was 2008, so that'll be a different year enough. If you look hard enough, you can find new Bionicle cheaper than used. That is interesting. I actually don't know about that. I think the only ones I have gotten new were because I was at Philly Brick Fest a couple years ago, and there was somebody who had Bionicle but did not need them. So they asked me about it, cut me a deal, and I think two of the sets were sealed or nearly sealed. Like not 100% like, but I couldn't. It was weird, but I also got them pretty cheap. So I don't know. And I think it's just because I was trying to look for like particular sets that I wasn't sure about, like if it would be easier finding them new or sealed versus used. But some of them really do hike up in price. Probably the darkest of the storyline. Books were good for those years. Having the jump story mediums is annoying, makes it hard to share. Yeah, that's very true. And also, it contradicts each other. Some of the media does contradict each other. Like, when I was growing up with it, just cut over to this comment. From what I remember, this website serial stories took place in a different dimension. Yeah, so that's the thing. Some of them were contradictory, where it's like, oh, it doesn't take place in the main timeline. It's another one, or it's like Bionicle Heroes, and like some of the video game ones were non-canon because nothing would line up with each other. Bionicle Heroes had a compilation of villains that were from separate years that would not have existed necessarily at the same time as the game's supposed to take place. So it's like, it's a fun romp, but that's all it is. It's not really building upon existing story that much. It's more of like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of another medium or another franchise that's done something like that. It's like a spin-off. I guess that's the right word for it. But, okay. So 2007, I love this year in LEGO in general. 2007 I loved because it had two main underwater themes. And you guys know that LEGO underwater stuff is my jam, my bread and butter, my go-to. Because Bionicle took place underwater. Everything was aquatic related in this theme. Aqua Raiders launched this year, and it was a short but good Aqua Raiders, like not related to the original Aqua Raiders, it just happened to share the name, a good diving theme with a lot of abnormally large creatures in the Bermuda Triangle. It was really an interesting thing. I enjoyed it a lot at the time. I remember that I went to someone's house and was playing with them. I even played with the submarine long before I would get it myself. This was one of the first themes that I actually completed was Aqua Raiders. And that was while I was on YouTube, like doing this stuff recently. I recently paid $35 for Matoro with box. Wow. I don't remember how much I got. I did get a Matoro sealed a couple years ago, and I got it for a friend of mine, so I sent it off to him and he reimbursed me. I do not remember if it was $35, but I know it was over retail price, so I will give it that. So, for what I grew up with, December 2006, once again, the holiday wave, they have them right before the January wave, and I got 3 figures from 2007. And ironically, even though I enjoyed this year a lot, I did not get a lot of figures back in the day. It was actually winding down quite a bit for, Bionicle collecting as a kid. So, the first one I had was Karapar, second was Alec, and third one was Prydak. And these are fantastic figures. The Baraki line in general has some fantastic figures to them for a basic canister set. They break from the mold as far as how the figures are actually built. They have some really nice torso designs with just a handful of Technic and Bionicle pieces, just making it all work. I would say Karapar, out of the 3 of these, and out of the 6, like 2 of them are on the standard side of building, but they still look really good. And they also have a cool animalistic nature to each of them. So this one obviously looking more like a crab. This one looking more like an eel. This one, I've tossed back and forth. Some people have said that it looks like a shark. I think it looks more like a sunfish. Like, a shark would be more threatening, but I don't get shark out of this one when I look at it. From the face to the body, it doesn't represent that as much for me. I think of like a sunfish or something that has more of the elongated face, as the mask dictates to it. Even some of the fin work back here, but with the blood stain look to it, I guess it's supposed to be a shark. I don't know. Maybe there's a certain type of shark out there I'm not aware of. Um, but that's not the thing I think of at first when I see this one. I always found this one to be simple, yet like a little bit confusing because of the way it's built. It almost repeats the build onto itself, and it's a little hard to tell the orientation in which you're building it, and then of how it's posed. Like, is it supposed to be more hunchback? Is it supposed to be upright? I'm not really sure. Even to this day, I have it. I've taken it apart, and then I've tried to rebuild it again, and I'm like, I don't know. Even though it's not a lot of pieces, it's the structure of the pieces that confuses me. Alec, pretty simple, but gets the point across. He's an eel. He's got that slender look to his body. I love the spikes all the way through and how it connects with the head. It's very well done there. And these claw pieces are pretty nice too. Karapar, again, on the basic side, but very sturdy and rugged looking. You get that like tough presence with him. I love the shell detail across all these newer pieces, and that they use them in other sets as well. I will say the canisters are very funky for this one, because many canisters, of course, you can't actually put the figures back in wholeheartedly. You always have to take some limbs off or some other pieces off of them in order to fit them back into the canister. But I will give it credit that they look unique. They look interesting. They have this jagged, almost glacier-like, core-like feel to them, and a lot of bubbling detail around the sides. So it really plays up the mystique. This year actually has a bit of a darker theme to it that I enjoyed even as a kid and still enjoy to this day. Even though I'm not a horror fan or anything, it still has that vibe that I could go with. A long time later, I would pick up the other three-ish. So we have Takadox, Mantax, and Kalma. And I say ish because Kalma is incomplete still. I've been piecing him together from Bricklink, and unfortunately I do not have all the parts yet. There are just parts here and there, like the tentacles or some of the shoulder pieces or something like that are missing. It's not much at this point, but still, I cannot call it complete yet. I'm aware that these foot pieces are actually different than the box art. Yeah, for some reason in this year, some of the box art does not exactly reflect the set. They've changed a few things before it was released, but I digress. Again, this one's on a very standard build, but still looks pretty good for the squid-like appearance, the octopus-like experience. And then you have Mantax, which is also a very decent build, having that manta ray vibe very well, and different parts that are used all the way through, different kinds of feet pieces. There, I couldn't say it. But yeah, I definitely like the upper torso build. That actually does stand out very well. And Takadox by itself is very threatening with its presence. I really do like the aura that this thing provides. There are some dark, glow-in-the-dark pieces throughout the figure. It's again having a very slender, almost mantis-like body. It's very interesting for a creature like this, an underwater appearance. And sometime down the road, in the same year, I would get, once again, 2 figures, and they continued from the ones that I had the previous year. So we have been long past the time of having the fire and ice figures, or red and white figures, as the first ones I would get in any wave. And that is a tradition that I had a long time ago with my brother and I. But at this point, yeah, I was the one that was picking all these up, or getting them as gifts. So, continuing from the previous year of 2006, we have Huki and Matoro, now in their Maori forms. Nowadays, Matoro looks pretty good. I think he's just breaking enough from the mold that it works well. There's some interesting part usages here. I will say he's not the best for posing, though, especially with this arm and having the big 2 pieces. It does bend in some ways that does not allow for the best flexibility, but it does look really cool. I'll give it that. And the mask is also very nice, too. Huki, he feels plain in some areas, but he also feels cumbersome and overloaded in other ones. Like, I was never fully a fan of the shoulder blades here. Like, it looks good, but it always gets in the way of his mask. Which, by the way, the mask is really wide. It's like one of the widest masks that Bionicle has ever created. I know this because when I was doing the Bionicle mask wall project several years ago, 2006 or 2016, 2017 or something, roughly 10 years after these came out. I know that when I was trying to build that wall itself and add the masks onto it, Huki needed quite some adjustment in order to fit on there and to work around the other masks. So it was not great. I do think it's a nice piece, though. I would like to use it as an armor piece for mock building, or maybe as a mask piece for something else, but have a bigger body to accompany it. But as it is, it's okay. And I think I've actually had some pieces fall off of this figure over time. I don't think he's complete as he used to be, but I'm sure it wouldn't take much to add it back together. Yeah, that's pretty much all I could say for that. I also do like that the chains carried over from the 2006 version. Sometimes when the hero figures have a second year and they're transformed into something else, they don't really carry over that well. Like Naparu. That almost resembles nothing like the one from the previous year. He's got some interesting part usages as far as the legs and things, but and I do like these blade pieces for the upper legs and the shoulders. But there's not much else I can say for this one compared to the previous one. It just feels like a big departure. So, I mean, the mask is nice, but it could have worked with literally anybody else. Zoe Holly, luckily I still have her in good condition. I mean, I got the rest of these long after the fact. I want to say like even a few years ago. And luckily she has all of her lime joints in good condition. The same thing with Alec, because it was a problem around this time, was that lime joints and other parts were becoming brittle in manufacturing. So I'm glad that these worked out very nicely. They're still in good condition. You know, nothing's been severely broken on them. The wings, while unnecessary for something that's underwater, does look really cool. And you could almost treat them like fins or something instead of wings because of the underwater vibe. But this one, you know, even though it's pretty standard, is still a well-to-do figure. It still looks really good to me. The giant claw hand is interesting. I thought they were going to be multiple pieces articulated, but it's just one fabricated piece. So there's that. And then the last two we have here are Toa Jowler and Toa Kongu. It's a bit of a toss-up between Huki and Kongu, which one I like less, and almost for the same reasons. Because of articulation. Like, they both have bulky, wide, or deep necks, you know, heads and structures in general, so you can't get a lot of maneuverability with them, you know, all the way around. Especially Kongu, because he has a lot more going on the back of him, so you can't really tilt his head up that much. And he's already a hunched figure, so you can't really move that far with him, even though he has a unique body type. And I'm okay with a Toa of Air having a hunched body. You know, I like that they mix him up between them, but yeah. And to be fair, not much else on him is very interesting either, because he's just carrying two of the same blaster. No, the thing that everybody has in the wave, sure, but he has two of them. Why couldn't he have another weapon? Why couldn't he have had something else to do with his weapons? He could have probably had this shoulder mounted because of his hunched nature. He could have just had one posed over and then carry something else, like a big staff. I don't know. I feel like this one could have had a little bit more time in the oven, and could have been a bit better. Also, his mask is very deep. It may not be exactly as wide as Huki's, but it is very elongated from the face. He was also one I had trouble with when making the Bionicle mask wall. And I do want to return to that, but I'm going to return to it in a different way. And we'll see more about that later. Jawa is pretty middle of the road. He's well-to-do, but he doesn't have a lot of unique function to him, or not a lot of unique part usage. It's a little bit nice of this crest that he has in the middle of the armor and some of the tubing. I do like that it matches up with his mask in some ways. And Gun Crab is Gun Crab. It's cute, but it doesn't really stand up that well. It's nice to add him back onto the body to carry him around, and also giving the figure a little bit more presence because of that. But there's not much else really going on with this one. but at least tries to break from the mold. At least try to do something different. All right, let me quick look at the comments here. Doc Sampson, I know we're having deja vu, and I know I did read Doc's comment as well earlier about friends don't let friends buy a Bionicle. Buddy, have I got news for you? It's still happening. But do friends let friends buy Snap? That's the real question. If you I am not a fan of Snap. But I'm also just ironically in love with Snap. I grew up with this, and I think it's really fun going back to it just to see how weird and bizarre of a building system it is. And I will have more to talk about that later. I actually did. I mentioned that set in particular in a haul video, but buddy, that's only the start of what I have coming up for Snap. And I want to say October, be prepared. It's going to be a wild ride because that's such an obscure low system. Like, there's very few parts in that system, but I'm gonna make it work. I'm just cracking up because of things I don't want to completely reveal yet. But oh man, it's gonna be great. And no problem listening while going through Costco. The football shoulders, yeah, it does look like football shoulders for Mantax. So weird that the light acrobatic air Toto become the hulking tank. Yeah, true. Toa are pretty cool. Yep. Kagu's build would have been better for Naparu. That's a fair point. Although we have had our fair share of hunched figures in black, whether Toa of Earth or what have you. So I like the idea that yes, they can all have different body types at different points, but like it doesn't have to just be because of the element or whatever. But it's just the way it was done. I think could have been improved. Maybe I'll improve myself. I know that Nick on Planet Ripple has done that with a couple of the Bionicle figures, that he modified them and improved their designs. I should try that as well. There's many figures that I would love to try that with. And Lego sets in general, I'd love to try that with. Jungle, the river chase from Indiana Jones is still, that is up there for needing improvement. And Lego David, welcome to the stream, as well as Bionicle Forever. Good to see you both here. Oops, it skipped. There we go. Not bad. Not bad. 8535. I'm just trying to remember which Lewa that is. Lewa, I don't even know where we stand on that. 8535, Lego. Is it the original one? I do not remember set numbers. Oh, the original one. Wow. Well done. Yes, I still want to work on the Chima video, just trying to figure out a good time to do so. It's just, and also I want to try to get more research underway. Like, the actual call itself is not the problem. It's more of like the material, just getting it together. I have ideas literally all the time, but still need to do the research, before making them happen. So now going forward into 2007. Again, I didn't actually get that many sets this year when I was a kid, but I have gone back trying to collect them because I love this year. I love the styles of sets. I love how it breaks from the mold in many areas. So I do want to try to complete most of the figures throughout this year. The play sets I could go either way with, but the main figures would be nice. So I have gone back through them a bit over time. So as far as childhood ones, the only other one in here is Dead Car. I had this one because I got the Brickmaster subscription in 2007, and I got this set and one of the Aquarator sets, the Treasure Hunter or something like that, as part of the Brickmaster sets. They weren't all exclusive. They weren't for every year an exclusive set. Sometimes it was just like, oh, we have a new wave coming out, and you get this set right as the wave comes out, or something like that. I don't think there was any early releases of it where it's like a complete toy wave beforehand. I would not have remembered that specifically, but this was a cool figure. It was a neat one to build, and I have done a video separately about the other smaller figures from 2007, like the Felek or Thulox. I don't even remember if I'm pronouncing these correctly, and I can't fit them all on the same screen. Morak, and two of these figures. So I bought an eBay lot that had pretty much all these figures in it, except for the main figure of the Karzahni set and the trap piece. It just had the smaller figures that went with it because they paired up with everybody else. So I was like, yeah, that's not bad. I would still like to get Karzahni though. Side note, White Whale, like top 5 White Whale Bionicle sets. Because this one does not show up that often. When it does, it's highly expensive. I've actually considered multiple times of just piecing together the set because it's just too much to buy it. And I probably have a lot of basic parts in here, but a couple things exclusive here and there. Might go that way with it, unless I could find a fair enough price. Because this thing easily $200. Not even the whole set. I just mean the one figure from the set. It's ridiculous. But I do have the smaller figures from it already, and they do improve on some of the other figures here just by having an extra breather tube behind them. It's not much, but it makes sense. And it's still a unique design for those kinds of smaller figures, even though it's very bare bones and things from the back of them. They look pretty good from the front. I still appreciate the construction of them in a way that I wouldn't have thought of putting these pieces together, especially the crest plate on the front. And they're all shoulder-mounted weapons, too. So take of that as you will. These smaller, four-legged creatures, again, a unique body. I'd say it's actually better than the Rocka, which it reminds me of, but feels better for some reason. Something about him seems a little bit more posable, seems more complete as a whole model, because the body is very basic, but the way everything is laid out feels very thorough. And I also do like that their stingers are actually blasters instead of just being a spear piece or whatever. Kind of ticked because I almost had a chance of getting all the original Toamata for 180 seals. Ooh. I usually see it ranges, but I think it usually goes 60 and up of getting the whole wave of the Toamata. At present, I don't have any of them sealed though. I've gotten Bionicle lots over the years, 2016 onward or so, and I would get a whole bunch of the figures. Just I have 3 to 4 copies of some figures. I know I'm not going to use all of them, or if I do, I'd scrap them for parts or build the combos and just have the regular figures with them. There are some cases, yes, I do want to build the combos, but not all of them. The one Lewa was 12, so that was a good deal. Not bad. The Titans were so good, I said I missed out on them. So yeah, I missed out on the Titans as well back in the day, but I do have most of them now, which I'm happy about, and luckily didn't pay through the nose for them. I remember getting Hadraxon for, I don't remember the amount, but I remember getting him and a couple of other figures at one of the brick fairs in New Jersey several years ago. It was at the yard sale. They had a couple of Bionicle figures, and I was like, oh, I never had these. So I picked this one up. I remember getting Rocka XL, which I always wanted. I had everybody else of the 6 Rocka. I had 5 of them for a long time. For some reason, never had Vakama, so I was like, great. It feels good having all those together now. And I might have had the box. I'm not sure. One of those figures, at some point, I had the box, but I digress. Not this one. And I probably don't have the box anymore. This one I always call it the Swiss Army knife of Bionicle because he's got so many blades all over his body. I really do like the articulated fingers. That's really cool, and that's something that people have adopted very well after the fact and in their own mock building. But this one arm has 3 blades just angled off of him. You can't even move him independently that much. I've built this figure twice. I think he has only 1 or 2 pieces missing, but easy to replace. But these just don't move really. They're not a thing you can swap around. I would have liked that option. Instead of just having all 3 of them giantly pronged out like this, kind of awkwardly from the rest of the arm. He's got these big shoulder blade pieces, and then he's got these other blades that are popping out of the back. So it's not shoulder blades, but feels like it. That's what I say. He's the Swiss Army knife of Bionicle. He's got blades all over the place. It's the product designers are just talking amongst each other in 2007, and they're like, You know what this guy needs? More blades. How many blades do we want to add to him? Yes! All of them. Everywhere. I mean, we still got to make the other thing fire from its other arm, but just chuck them all into the left arm. Put them across the back. I want to see a Game of Thrones style of blades before Game of Thrones was even a thing. Well, I mean, I'm sure the books existed, but I mean, before the TV show was a thing. Before it got mainstream popularity, I should say. Yeah, just so much going on with this guy. Holy Kadunka! Yeah, we got to talk about this beast. This thing is. And look, as a Bionicle fan, I can definitely say this thing is super weird. Why did they make this? But also, I kind of enjoy how weird it is because they did things unconventional to any other figures. The way this whole body is constructed is unlike anything else that they made in Bionicle. Just the combination of torso pieces that they use to make the main body, how much is dedicated to the head and making an opening jaw. All of this beef in the legs. This guy's been working out. But anyways, it's so bizarre. It's so unusual of a figure. I couldn't not have it. So I did get this one many years ago, and I was he still he still sits together, and my gosh, I do like the jaw piece. I think that's probably where this basically came from, where they're like, can we use because the Bionicle over the years, they love to use claw pieces and spine pieces to make big jaws, to make these big pincers or mouths, and this is no exception. They have a giant spine piece that they used early in the year, and it's like, well, can we use that somewhere else? We can make this big opening jaw piece, and then they make the rest of the figure around it. That's again how I imagine this thing went together. And basically, in story, it's just a fish that got mutated. It's a nobody kind of thing that just becomes an obstacle for everybody involved. It's hilarious in the animation. That's why I said in the beginning, holy Kadunka. Oh boy. What a wild ride for that one. But then we bring it back a bit. For Maxilos and Spinax. Spinax, it's basically an underwater dog. It's really fun. Again, another way of using a claw piece for a mouth, having a whole bunch of pincers, because the bottom of the jaw is made out of a three-prong claw piece that they've had since the beginning of the Bionicle series, and it works well here. I do like the unique head for it, and it's got some neat build for the torso and the body, but still kind of like a standard quadrupedal kind of figure. It gets the job done. Now we can talk about the best part of the set, Maxilos. My gosh! This thing inspires me to build mocks. I kid you not, I love the design of this figure so much. I'm happy that I have this one. I got it from a used lot. It actually was cheaper buying this in a Bionicle lot with other figures than buying it independently. That said, it wasn't complete, so I still have parts I need to get from it. But not much by this point. It's a little bit around the shoulders and some of the torso, mostly exterior stuff as far as I can tell. So it's not that bad. But my gosh, this is such a good figure. So many points of articulation, so many different ways. It has waist articulation that not many other figures have. And the way it carries it is so good. It uses not even brand new pieces, but ones that have already existed for years and years by this point, and does a good job with it. It astounds me. It's actually one of my more favorite Titan figures from Bionicle, just by the composition and possibilities. This thing composed very well. And I would love to build mocks inspired by this thing, just in that construction of it. I need to adapt that to my own building. The feet are good on it too for the posing options for it, just a very sturdy build. Very well done. It's a strong A, almost A+, just for him alone. And it's a 2-pack, so okay, sure, we get another figure with it. Nothing wrong with that. Let's see. That feel when your parents threw out these Bionicles. Oh, yeah, that's rough. Oh, I do have a story time that I forgot to mention, and if you already listened to the other streams, you probably heard it, so a little bit of repeat there. But I'm going to catch up on the comments real quick. Why do Hero Factory go for more than Bionicle? Because nobody bought him. I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I did pick up on Hero Factory. Maybe that would be a fun video on its own. I had some of the Hero Factory stuff. I did try to embrace it after Bionicle cancellation because I fell off of Bionicle after 2007. That's the long and short of it. I got back into it a little bit before it got canceled, but then I just moved on to Hero Factory. And I was intrigued about what they were going to go with for that, but I was half and half on the story of it, where it's more Monster of the Week kind of deal, where it's like, okay, we have a wave, and they have these figures, they have the villain to fight, and it's self-contained. But it's not entirely, super lore-based about the world, and the environment, and all the characters. I like that they simplified a lot of details, and they didn't make it too dumbed down, but the method of it, I go between it because of how the story actually carried. Same reason G2 is expensive, that's true. And luckily with G2, I bought them when they were in the stores. I didn't buy them all as soon as they came out, but I was excited for G2 back in 2015, which I can't believe was 6 years ago now. Wow. Just wow. But I was excited for it when it came back. And I got most of the figures right as Bionicle was canceled. Like, there were still a couple of them from Toys R Us that I didn't pick up, when they first came out. But there were some, like, the Summer Wave, when they had a couple of figures, I got 2 of them right away. Because I was like, yes, day one purchase, these look fantastic. And then I, made my way through the other figures. I think there was only 2 of them I bought through eBay because they were sold out in stores. And I don't just mean Toys R Us, although it was the main supplier of them for me in my area. Target did have them, but most of them were on discount. And I already had those figures, already bought them before the clearance, unfortunately. And Walmart, I just didn't go to that much. It was a little bit further out than other stores for me. Definitely underproduced and not distributed enough. I don't think Australia even got the second wave of G2. Yeah, some regions, they just cut them. It's very weird. But then again, the US has missed out on a couple of waves of sets too. I remember that the Planet series from Star Wars, we didn't get certain waves of them. Let's see. Some of the Hero Factory was better than Bionicle. I do agree. Even the villain figures were really good from Hero Factory compared to Bionicle. Rotor is still one of my favorite figures. Really, really nice build. Von Nebula is pretty cool. The Witch Doctor, impressive build. The Witch Doctor is a good build in the CCBS system, whereas the Fire Lord wasn't. I actually got rid of my copy of the Fire Lord years after owning him because I just did not care for him anymore. And would I get him again? I'm not interested in it right now. I still don't care that much for him. I love how Gundunga was a microscopic creature until he got accidentally scaled up in the star. Yeah, pretty much. It's just sure, he's just got an underwater creature now as a full-fledged, monster. I never built Rocka XL, but I have heard some good things about him. And Witch Doctor is nice. Yep. I'm still happy to have the Witch Doctor. I told him what to do. One of the few Hero Factory sets I wanted. Bricksaw, welcome to the stream. And I'm finally got everything settled through for Bricklink. I don't know why it kept delaying. But, hey, it helps that I'm actually on the laptop. So I guarantee using Bricklink through the mobile, on the phone, did not help me. That karzahni got me sidetracked. So what are some of the hard to get regularly released sets? Karzahni, if I remember correctly, was a limited Toys R Us exclusive. So that might have been one of the reasons why he's more expensive now. Because I think on the box it says something like special edition or something like that. Maxilos is the best Titan. Yeah. I can get behind that. Von Nebula was cool too. Yeah, basically all the villains were cool. The Bulk and Vapor set is one that I could say from Hero Factory. that the heroes look decent, but it's just bulk. It's basically just taking two of the sets and almost combining it together and giving a little more, well, bulk to the system that they had at the time. You know, Ben 10 system, because it was right before it. But it is interesting nonetheless. But yeah, any of the hero sets, I didn't get every single one of them, and even of the ones I did, I was very picky. I was very choosy about, like, okay, I like this one, but not this one. I did on the whole like the Surge sets, just because of the color scheme and the design of the mask. Mic is real loud. Sorry. I'm just working from the laptop mic, so maybe I'm just talking loud. My apologies for your eardrums. Karzahni and Toamata Nui are the hardest to find normal sets. I think Toamata Nui was also a Toys R Us exclusive. That also might be why he's hard to find. There's a few of them. All right. There's a few other ones down here for some reason that set-wise, number-wise, separated them. There was Nocturne, which I got a couple years ago, not even from a LEGO group, but if I remember correctly, from a Nerf group. It was just like, some Nerf fans are LEGO fans, some Nerf fans are Bionicle fans. It does circulate around every so often, and I got talking with somebody who no longer wanted this figure, so I got it overseas from them, and at a decent price, too. So, this one was a Walmart exclusive, from what I remember back in the day, and a lot of unique colors to him. I love this, like, all of these glowing pieces. I don't remember if they glowed in the dark, but they definitely had a nice marbling texture to them, unlike some of the other sets. So, very nicely done, having some of these pieces in different colors. Again, a different shape for the jaw, which is kind of cool. And I gotta say it, General Kenobi. I think there's actually somebody, I remembered on one of the Facebook groups that somebody made a meme about this character relating to General Grievous, and then they just went completely overboard. It was just like they just kept adding arms onto him because he's already got 4. It's like, yeah, let's keep going. Let's add like 16 arms on him. He couldn't stand up, but it was hilarious. But I am happy to have him. This is a really good year for green sets. Can I just say that? There's a lot of sets in green this year. And I think it's because it fits well with the blue background, which I found weird because normally you would think blue, orange. But yeah, for some reason they just love green this year. And yet they love green, and then they terribly manufactured it. So anyways, I got this set a couple years ago as well from eBay. I do have the box with it, and the box is in decent shape. I don't know if I want to keep having it in decent shape. I don't know if I want to get the other box from 2007, but sure. It was already a good price, and the box was just a throw-in, honestly, for me. It wasn't a reason to get it in that particular listing. But this is a decent set. So this one actually has a pretty standard build for the Toa figure in it. It's not much to write home about, composition-wise, or the way parts go together. I do like that some things break from the mold here with like the shoulder armor and the chest plate armor, but that's about it. It's really about the submarine. This submarine is a really cool build. I love the way this thing goes together. It's like one of the previous sets, but in a more compact form. And again, it inspires me to build a vehicle. I would love to try to adapt some of these methods into other vehicle builds. It's really simple, but effective. Gotta love that. Let's see here. Don't remember what the story is with Lezific, but I remember it being sad. On the general part of the story that I know, he was one of the first Toa teams. He was the leader of his team, and because he hesitated to make a move, his whole team got wiped out. Like, think Thanos, but it's 5 out of 6 of them, not half of them. And he's just, like, wandering aimlessly, trying to find new purpose, and somehow winds up here and fights off with this guy. So it's green on green. You got this, and you got this. These two basically fighting each other. I don't even know if they're longtime enemies or something like that, but he basically gets redeemed because of fighting with him, as far as I remember. And that, I don't even think I learned from the comics or anything growing up. I don't think I knew really what this figure was about growing up, either of these figures, really. As something that I learned in recent years. As other people have told me about his story, or I've read reviews, or whatever. The playsets, I can go hit or miss, as I mentioned earlier. Because I feel like these playsets are a bit on the lackluster side. Didn't he fail the mission? Yeah, there you go. Covered that. I didn't read it right away, sorry. You said it right after the question came up. I would like to get the minifigures from all of the playsets in Bionicle. I do not care for every single one of the sets themselves and all of the years of them. But this set in particular, I do like. It's one that I liked back in the day. I still like it nowadays, and I actually like it a bit more because I didn't realize how massive that vehicle was. For the $30 price that it was, and how it can contain so many figures inside of it, it's actually pretty decent. It's also got the jellyfish in the background, which is a really nice jellyfish build, no matter what LEGO system you're building under. It's mostly system. This is, playable to an extent, and this is just a neat little pod. I don't have much else I can say for that one. But the figures in this year are very weird. The minifigures that they made unique head molds for some of them, but not all of them. And then the ones they didn't make unique head molds for, they just recolored an existing one and said, that's the figure. And you're looking at them like, no, it's not. They distinctly have other ones that are one-to-one of what the other figures are. Why didn't you continue with that? So, like, this one is in green instead of in red, one of the others. So he might be right? I don't know. This set in particular, I've heard mixed opinions over the years, and I'm of the opinion that I'm not really interested in it. It doesn't do a lot that seems appealing. This tube area, it seems like it's actually hindering, how this thing can move around. The back of it seems a little bit odd, and it doesn't look like it's actually going to hold that much inside of it. I was hoping that this might actually hold a bunch of figures, maybe have a way of opening it up to let them out or whatever. But it doesn't seem like it does that much. As a whole set, it's got a lot of little vehicles to play around with and different creatures to play around with, but a little bit lackluster. It's like a jack of all trades, master of a few kind of thing, from what I've heard. The Toa Terrain Crawler. So this one looks pretty interesting. I think this one definitely covers more of the interior play that I like in a vehicle set, but I'm not interested in getting this right now. Again, I would focus on the figures more than the rest of it. I actually do have some of the masks from these creatures, just on their own, because they're nice colors. I do like that. Again, they recolored some pieces here, and they did make some interesting creatures out of them. They got the jellyfish again, which I could probably build on my own, but have not done so yet. So yeah. This one would be second to get of the playsets. This one would definitely be first in line. But not looking for them, super soon. Karzahni is definitely the big one that I would definitely want to get first and foremost to go back into this year. As I mentioned before, 2008 was the year that I left off Bionicle when I was a kid. 2008, I was about 7th grade into 8th grade, and the only thing that I had from this year was a paper from a Happy Meal toy that somebody gave me at lunch. I remember this photographically. It's strange how some memories you wouldn't think are important at the time, but they stick with you. They just have a way of embedding in your mind, and it's like, now this is an important moment. Because this was when I left off Bionicle, so it's like, okay, this is the last thing I had from it continuously. And actually, I might be able to bring up what that thing is. Give me a moment. It's literally a piece of paper that has a bunch of the background art from 2008, and you fold up the piece of paper. It shows instructions on it. You can fold it up, make it into a paper airplane, and throw it. It wasn't the Happy Meal toy itself. It was a compliment to the Happy Meal toys that they had at the time. I'm going to see if I can link it in the chat. But yeah, I got this from someone at lunch, and I did not care for the other parts of the figures. So basically, I left off at this point, because even though 2007 had a fantastic aesthetic, I love the designs of the sets in this year, even though I didn't have a lot of them. The reason why I left off, first and foremost, was that I felt the story was carrying on too long. I thought by this point that 2007 was, while a fun year, it was a lot of filler. That it did not need to happen at all. My understanding of 2006 into 2007, I did not actually know the story. It didn't really illustrate it that well in the comics. And it felt like, oops, we dropped this mask that's super important, even though we had it and we could have done something with it. And now it's at the bottom of the ocean. And we gotta go find it. And everybody wants to kill us for it. That was my childhood understanding of that story, even though it's a little bit different from that. But it is really funny going back to that, thinking about it, where it's just like, if that's actually the justification, like, yeah, I don't know. It just felt really weird. So, give me a second. Yep, here we go. Bionicle poster, Frantoka, paper airplane, double-sided from 2007. It doesn't actually say it's a part of any sets or other products. It's just kind of its own thing here. So maybe it wasn't from a Happy Meal toy? I was under the impression that it was, but I could be wrong. So I'm not going to bother trying to swap screens to put this up. I'm just going to link it in the chat. And it's, for anybody who's looking for it afterwards, it's ON Poster 12. Just in case you wanted to look it up separately. And come on. Don't poop out on me, internet. Ah. Okay, so unfortunately, it copied the link into the chat as two separate messages, so it doesn't come through as a proper link. And I did not bring up the tiny URL in order to shrink that. So I just put Bion Poster 12 to look it up. But it's not much. It basically exactly as I described it. Let me check back in the chat. I was lost by the story of this year. Gravity Hurts was great, though. Flashbacks to prior events from 2001 story in the books were cool. So I thought, this is the irony, because I thought by 2007, you know, I was a fan since 2001. I was keeping up with, you know, some of the elements of the story all along through the comics, the movies, the video games, not necessarily the books, and some of the web animations and things like that. By 2007's end, I thought, we're going on too long. This has got to wrap up. We have to, you know, we had like 1 or 2 years of basically filler. At the time, I considered 2004, 2005 kind of filler. Even though it was interesting to learn history, it was unnecessary. 2005, I could have easily wiped from the record, and that would have been fine. Like 2004, have it as a flashback? Sure. 2005, we're spiders. Yeah, okay, you get some cool designs, but ultimately is not necessary, or doesn't add a lot to the main story of it, in my opinion, from that time. So when it came to 2007, I was like, I can't follow this much longer because I'm not, you know, the story kind of lost me. And ironically, 2008 is when they were wrapping things up. It's like they had new material that was referencing old material, as Darth Speedy said in here. They had some really good animations. They had some really good music videos. And I have enjoyed those. And I did still get the comics because they just came with the Lego Club magazine. So I read them scarcely. I knew of the sets at the time. But even then, I wasn't into the sets back then. Like, these sets were actually going in a direction I didn't want. Compared to 2007, they were going back to basics, back to standard design, back to boring. Oh man, they were boring. You want silver? You didn't think Bionicle had enough silver? This year is the year of silver. Everything had silver in it. Everything had dark gray. Everything had light gray. More than the actual brighter colors that you could tell figures apart from. Yeah, it was my second reason as why I wasn't interested in 2008, other than the story, was that the sets were lackluster. They had no reason for me to get into them. I couldn't even, like, nowadays, I have collected some of these sets, and I would still go back for them, but I will give it this credit, I have a harder time going back to this year than other years because of these biases that I still hold. The Fantoka wave in the early part of the year is where they split the villains and heroes, so it's like 3 heroes and 3 villains, and appropriately with the smaller figures that can attach with them. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like the mini-cons from Transformers, which is probably the most that I know of Transformers, is the Armada series and the mini-cons. So that should have been enticing to me, but it wasn't, because I wasn't into Transformers, but I digress. So, sets like this are okay. I will just say that they are okay. I do have Leewa now, but he is broken. He does have some parts that are either broken or missing. So he is incomplete. But I would like to complete him. I would like to get the full team from this year. But not the whole line of sets, at least right now. But Kopaka, I don't have him. I think I only have his mask. So I would like to get the rest of the figure sometime later. I think it is cool that they have some jetpacks and wings and other things to adapt to the environment of it. But otherwise, the designs of the sets are so boring. Pohatu is probably the most complete I have of any of the figures in this year, and Antros, which we'll look at in just a moment, because I have the canister with it. Oh, please don't do this to me. I got the spinning ball of death again. I really want to hope that it's not going to just kick out the stream again. So I do apologize if we're getting a little janky. Vehicles are cool, but the toe are pretty bland. Using all silver and gray probably cut on cost for production. It probably did. Got the jet tracks and Rocco sealed right now. Hope to build them someday. Nice. I also never understood why the Toa had completely different looks in the vehicles. Don't think the designs were ever explained. I don't know if they were explained, and it does feel very weird that they're different designs. Although, to their credit, I actually like some of the vehicle designs better than the sets. Pohatu is all gray here and some orange, which orange, as a change-up from the brown color scheme, fine. I'm okay with that. They did that with a couple figures in the past couple years before that. That's fine. This one just being straight-up orange instead of yellow-orange, okay. But gray, all over the place. Gosh. He's got a different body type, I will give him that. But, and some interesting things with like the propellers with the claws. I think that's kind of cool. And the shoulder mounting, again, is also a charm for me. But I definitely like this design way better in the Rocco set in this year. I marked that I have Function 2008. Admittedly, there's a couple of these smaller sets that are either promotional or polybag or something. I just rebuilt them from parts. It's not even that I own the set or anything. Like, I got it with all those pieces together. It's just that I had enough pieces to rebuild it from my own. I could probably do that with other ones in here, honestly. So before I jump into bad things, I'm going to go over the other ones in the Fantoka wave in the early part of the year. Antros, I got him. Again, keep in mind, I didn't get anything when these came out. These are any ones that I got long after the fact, like only a couple of years ago, actually. Antros, I got him in the canister as well. He's very good. Really pulls off the vampire look all the way top and bottom through. This is one where the muted black color works with the color scheme very well. I don't mind this one. And then we have Vampra. Actually, even more bat-like than most. And I would like to get this at some point, but don't have it currently. So I do like the look of this one very much. It's very, very Bat-like. I think I only have the mask out of this one. This one I don't even know if I have the mask, but Chirox is cool. A little bit less cool than the rest, but he does have a lot of posability, so I'll give him that. And at least looks a bit different from other ones. So there's that. Everybody come together. Throw your thumbs down. Not in the stream, but on the figure. Oh, the if the Fantoga wave was a shrug, a distaste, where I'm like, it's not great, but it's got some things going for it. This is a groan. I'm still having a hard time building these figures because I don't like how they're designed. I do not have any one of these figures complete except for down here, but I'll talk about that in just a bit. But these Toa figures, no. There's one that's like one part incomplete. Toa Gali is definitely the biggest offender of them because do you see blue? There's very little blue. It's in the hands, a little bit in the shoulders, the mask, a little bit of the torso, but so much muddled silver. Oh. I'm going to build it, but I'm not going to have fun with it. I have the mask. I may have a few other parts. I do like the crosshair piece. That is cool, but that's the only thing. That's the only thing I like. The mask is awful compared to the figure, the character that we know. It's not a bad mask on its own merit, but compared to other ones, it just feels weird. It also feels weird that there are wings on the mask, so you're like, if you have the mask separate, do you have the wings still on it, or is that just, how does that work? And then, yeah, only one weapon, actually most of these, only one weapon, as opposed to the previous wave, where it's like, okay, they had the projectile and something else to use. But not this one. No. They just threw a crosshair on it. They threw a scope on it, a little laser sight, you know? They jazzed it up only a little bit. They could have done more. I think that crosshair piece was also in the Vapor set from Bulk and Vapor, and I do like it there. That almost feels more practical, honestly. Tahu I have nearly complete. He is definitely the best one out of the three in this wave. He actually has another weapon to use. Even if it's a shield or a spinning blade, whatever you want to call it. He's got more outward appearance of red on his color scheme with the wings, the masks, everything. I'm still not crazy about the mask design, but it's not as offensive as other ones. I can still kind of get the feel for it. Yeah, he's only missing like one of these blade pieces for me, so that's not bad. I've parted him most together from Bricklink. So, he's fine. He's all good there. And I do kind of like these engine pieces, that they are very posable. It does add a little bit more articulation to the figure. If you want it, it's there. So, it's not bad. Toa Duo? His mask is very cool. It doesn't look like what I would expect, but it looks really cool. And honestly, it looked cool not only as a mask, but I would like it to use as a torso piece because it has a nice, sleek, and just textured enough design to it. At least the torso is a bit interesting, but not much beyond that as far as the rest of his weaponry. He's got red in his color scheme when Tahu already has red. I don't know why they did that. And at least him, I could excuse the muddled color a little bit more because black and gray go together pretty well with the black figures from Bionicle. The silver works okay with them as well, as we've seen. I'm not going to complain about it as much. And he's got a cool piece. I always forget that this piece is from this set. But I see it in other people's mocks, and I'm like, dang, that's cool. And they use it in a bunch of different ways, too. And I do like that piece on its own and accessorizing the blaster. The shield on his arm is a little bit off, but at least it's there. I don't know. I'm okay with it. Okay. Let's see. Where we leave off in the chat. I think it was adapted for the vehicles. Okay. So that's the explanation. I've never seen Function. That probably beats Good Guy in my opinion. Yeah, it might. Any one of those good guys. I remember doing a speed build face-off for Chirox in a Lego store. That's cool. I didn't know they did that. That doesn't look like Gala to me. Exactly. You would not have known. They could have called the figure anything else, and you would have been okay with it. That looks more convincing as a Dark Hunter or something. Yeah, honestly. Kopaka had the only had the launcher too. Yes, I think so. Oh, you mean like you didn't have another weapon with him? That's right. Yeah, you're fair enough, but at least they accessorized the thing a little bit. Again, laser sight, Bayonetta, sure. Admittedly, yeah, I would have liked to see another item with him too. I forgot about that, so thanks for correcting me on there. All right, these are actually pretty interesting. They got like an insect vibe to them. Where this one, again, having a bit of the praying mantis look, but a different way of it. So Krika, I don't have either Krika or Gorast. I may have just like a few parts from them, but not enough to build the whole figure. But I would like to build these at some point. I would like to have them together. Krika is definitely interesting on how it looks. It is a little misleading that in the animations it has like a pincer on the end of its tips, when in the real set it doesn't. It is a little bit bare bones on some of the parts because of the Matoran builds. I did not like the Matoran builds this year, and some of the fixed angle pieces. Like, yeah, they did that for a long time in Bionicle, but those angles themselves, in some media, led it to believe that they could move, that they were actually articulated, and they weren't. That's what got me about it. And I still feel like they could have made those as two separate parts, so you just connect with a pin or an axle or something, and it would work fine. Oh, I see. And also a cool color scheme to him, too. Gorast, definitely got the bug vibe there. Again, General Kenobi and suits. But, yeah, it's pretty well to do. Like, the colors, again, work very well. Honestly, the black that goes into these characters works better than the gray that goes into the hero characters. It's weird, but it honestly works a bit better. I also find it funny about these wings. I first realized these wings in Hero Factory in one of the bug-like sets. I forgot that it was the same as the one in Bionicle. So it's funny going back to them like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's a decent figure all around. Biddle, I have almost 2 copies of Biddle. Almost by accident. This one I actually do have the canister with it. It's one of the most common of them that I can find anywhere. Incomplete or complete. I think, yeah, I should have one that's complete and one that's incomplete. It might be like one of the pieces on the ends or something that's missing or something like that. It's minimal. And I definitely have a multiples of the head, which is kind of cool on its own. And I could see that being used for a torso, too. I think it's kind of cool when people use heads or mats as part of a torso because there's just really nice shaping to them. Oh boy. Okay. Toa Ignika. He existed. I wasn't into the story at this point, so I found it interesting, but for some reason, did not find it interesting enough that I'm like, oh my gosh, they finally made the Mask of Life as a set. I should buy it. I never thought of that at the time. I was already out of the loop at that point, and even though that should have been my thinking, it didn't carry through. But I did get them much later for that purpose. It's an okay set otherwise. The speeder flying machine thing, it doesn't really do much for me because it's all like one fixed thing. There's not a lot of moving parts to it. It just feels like they've just tacked pieces on top of it. But I do have it, and I have it with the box for some reason. So there's that. And I've already done a video comparing the different versions of Toa Mata Nui. and Toei Nika and Madanui separately, each of them with those masks of life. Admittedly, I probably could throw one or two other versions in there, but I don't know if I should. The Vizon and Fenrak one, that is, and a 3D printed one that I got at Brick Fair, Virginia. The one that they showed in Bionicle Heroes. I forgot about Toei Nika, another big miss out for me, and that Takanuva. Biddle was a cool figure. Yeah, I want to say Biddle, I'm not as offended by using the Matoran torso in the middle of him. It works fine. And it actually works well with the wings, too. Voltraz, I got dirt cheap at Philly Brickfest for 1 year of the yard sale. This is the story I was telling before, where I said, oh, somebody had a bunch of Bionicle they no longer wanted, and they cut me a super cheap deal, and I got a bunch of figures. This one I got that way. And I got him mostly complete. I think I was only missing one or two pieces, which is fine. And I got him with the box. Oh, I didn't tell the story from earlier, from 2008. So the 2008 figures, the Toa Mari, I only had 2 of them out of the 6 back in the day. I distinctly remember my family was at Walmart during the summer while we were on vacation. And my dad said that he would buy the other 4 figures from the Toa Mari if my brother and I were on good behavior. And I wasn't, and we didn't. That's the story that I remember, but it feels now like it didn't happen because I haven't asked my brother about it, if it actually happened. I'd like to ask him, like, do you remember this at all, or if I'm just making this up? And that kind of proposition, like, my dad would never do that. He never, I don't remember any other time that he would have bought that much Lego on good behavior for one visit at a Walmart. That just didn't make sense to me. But I do distinctly remember seeing the figures on the shelves. Maybe this was after 2008, or maybe this was after 2007, or at the tail end of it when they were on clearance. So maybe I was more inclined to buy them because they were cheaper now. Because I know my dad. I know how he thinks. I could be wrong. I don't know. So that memory sits in my head, whether or not it actually happened. I question if it actually happened because of the logistics. But, man, I would love to live in the timeline where I had all 6 of them because I was a good boy. But dang it, we're siblings, we're going to have a sibling rivalry, we're going to get antagonistic, even in public. But it wasn't like making a big scene or anything. It was just, normal kid play or whatever. But I also know my dad. He's very ornery, so there you go. So I had to get that one off my chest. I was just like, I remember this. I'm questioning if it was real, but oh well. But at least I have the figures now, so long story short, at least I get to enjoy them. Takanuva. I have most of this figure complete. I do not have his spear. There's a few pieces missing on the torso and legs, but most of him is there. Again, one of those cases where I bought a Bionicle lot, and he had the figure with it, cheaper than buying the figure on its own, but it was incomplete. But he has a decent build. He's got a pretty nice size and structure to him compared to other Titan models. It's very technical-oriented, I will tell you that. And he stands up very well. He's got a cool mask, but it is a very big mask compared to the head. I remember Bionicle Mask Wall, that was another one I had trouble with as far as fitting it with other masks. It really, really had a hard time. I would still like to complete him. And he did basically inspire the Toa Madanui build later down the way. Now, vehicle sets. I got 3 of the vehicles for $120 from a person I knew on Instagram who was a Lego fan, used to be a Bionicle fan, no longer wanted them. The sets were still built, but they may have had a little bit of dust or may have needed some cleanup. And he sent them bubble wrapped in a large box with all the things put together. So I'll give him credit for how everything was sent. I have taken them apart. I Cleaned all the pieces. I put them into separate buckets to get cleaned per set, and I haven't rebuilt them. The pieces have obviously dried, and I put them into a bag or another box or something. But I have not gone back to actually build these. So I would like to build these at some point. Problem is, I don't know where to put them because there's so many of them and they're so big. So that's the long and short of every one of these. I think Pohatu looks a lot better in this one because he's got a bit more orange to his color scheme. He's got even more of it through the torso and some of the arms and legs. You know, it works better. This is a cool function in the middle of it, and how it can load from the top. I do like that look for the Rocko. The second one that I had was the Jet Tracks, only the blue edition. I don't really care about the yellow one. Maybe I'll get the parts for the yellow, like just the color swapping parts, but I don't care to have one of each of those sets, because literally the only difference is some colors, and one was a Target exclusive. The yellow one was Target exclusive. But it doesn't really change that much, function-wise. It is cool how the wings fold out and having, you know, different ways of firing through it. I think this is supposed to be Antraz, which is a bit of a letdown, but I guess if it needs to fit in there, it needs to fit in there. And like I said, the Jet Tracks, yeah. So the one thing that is cool about the Jet Tracks is that its alternate model is a motorcycle. So I would like to try that at some point because it just sounds like a cool idea. And the XLR was the third one that I had from this bundle. So $120 was actually a pretty good deal on it. I don't remember if that encountered shipping. But either way, it was really good. And finding any one of these would you know, finding any of them separately, I should say, would take a lot. Why did they even bother with a color swap? Because exclusivity. I don't know. I don't even know in story if it means anything. And welcome, Hashir. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but welcome to the stream. So the Axelara, before taking this one apart, I did play around with it a bit, so I did actually enjoy the play functions a lot more than the other sets. I love that the sides open up. I love how the landing gear is positioned. I like that the back of it can have wings popping out a bit more. Hashtag pop those wings. Gotta bring that back. That was a thing from the hidden side that I said on a live stream or something. And it was great. Maturin figures, I'll get them eventually, but I'm not really enthused about them. They're not a great building design, as I mentioned before, but I do have a few of these. So, namely, I have Tamna, who just doesn't want to load for some reason, and Solek, and Radiac. Basically, those three I have right now. They are complete, and parts are in okay condition, and everything like that. Not the best designs for the Maturin, but the mutated ones here are actually kind of cool. Having this, like, miniature vampire vibe to them, different parts that are being used all throughout, different colors of pieces, they look a little bit better. Photok, I'd definitely like to get him at some point, especially pairing up with Pohatu. That's all I really got to say about that one. Also, I didn't realize until like a week ago, these are noble masks. Really? I had no idea. I do have the masks for some of these, though. Tamna, I think I have most of the figure complete. I don't remember if I have all the parts. And he just doesn't want to load. Weird. Mutron and Vikan was a Walmart exclusive. It says it's limited edition, and I'm hit or miss about it. I feel like eventually, sure, but it's not something on my mind right now. It hasn't really been on my mind for a long time to get this figure. Yes, I like green, but there's very little green in this. It's more black and silver than green. Green becomes the accent color, not the main color, surprisingly. Even though it stands out better. But he looks okay. Both of these figures just look okay to me. I do like that they at least had a set with two of these combined. So you get that play function right out of the box. But it doesn't really do much more for me compared to other figures. Now we're talking. Makuta Icarus. Back in the day, I saw this thing. Even though I wasn't acquainted with the story, I thought this is Pterodax. This is how it looks in the 2008. Not bad. But then I see the name Icarex. It's like, wait, that's not the same name. What's going on? So it's apparently a different figure that just owns the same mask. A bit of wasted potential, I think. People identify this mask. They know this is the main villain. They've known this for a long time. Why would you give it to another character? I don't know. But it's fair. It's a pretty neat build. I've seen it size-wise compared to other figures, and I'm like, dang, that's actually pretty good for a Titan. So this one I am more excited in 2008 to collect. Well, if I have most of the vehicles, I might as well have Mazica. I've thought about this one a couple times. It's a giant turret, but it's a very posable turret. It's a very well-articulated machine. I do like how it loads from the top of it, even though it only fires one at a time. And the figure is okay. I think the figure might actually be a little bit more decent than the other ones. Only by a little bit. Because it's still using the same build, similar parts. But it fits nicely. And then Clack! This is a Brickmaster promotion. Every once in a while, 2008 onwards, they did some exclusive models only released in Brickmasters. They didn't do that when I was subscribed in 2007. What up with that? So I was only subscribed for that 1 year and did not get this one in 2008 or any of the bonus material from it. But I have picked up a bunch of them from the yard sale at Brick Fair, Virginia, the magazines themselves, for dirt cheap. Like 50 cents a magazine, Brickmaster edition, which is great. That being said, I would like to get the Brickmaster editions of some of the Bionicle comics, because they did have some with exclusive covers and a little bit more artwork and such. So I'm like, yeah, maybe, but eventually. Because they're not easy to find either. This one I could probably build out of parts of my own collection and maybe just get one or two that I don't already have, like these wing nuts. But yeah, I'm not crazy about this one, but it exists. It's there. It's kind of plot relevant. Got both. You got both colors. Nice. Temna's mask is pretty cool. I do agree. Temna does have a cool mask, even outside of the figure or relation to Liwa, which is basically why they have those Matoran. It's like they look like an offspring of the main character. Give me a moment. Hello. Yep. Well, it wasn't that.
Well, if it's that, it's really compromised. I have to get a drink, change my shirt, and go to feed 2 dogs.
All right.
What's that? It's furred out already? I hope.
Him?
Yeah. He's been out?
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay.
But he only just peed. But,
too hot in what I chose to wear.
And Castella's just been hiding, basically. Shaky. It's not a Chromebook. Or it's a very broken Chromebook. It's not. Scoopy! We'll be right back after these messages. I want to say there we go. Kind of like the other stream. Go figure. Oh, there he is. There's Castello. Now he's walking around. He was hiding for a while. They have 2003 mask art in the background. Yeah, it's really confusing. Again, I don't know why they called it another character. I don't know why they never thought, like, oh, we could just make another set of this villain, because we've already made other sets of the heroes. It's weird. Very, very weird. Now, 2009 is going to be a little bit of an interesting story. But again, I'm going to have to wait a minute or so before that happens. So, let me just Press the right button. Nope, that's not the right button. Oh, there we go. And welcome back. So, 2007, I left off Bionicle at the end of the year. 2008, I knew it was still going on. I didn't pay as much attention to it. I didn't get any of the sets. I only had a piece of paper that I could throw as a paper airplane. Whoop-de-doo. And it's not that I blame my friend for that. I'm just saying, like, at the time, yeah, nothing was going to happen with that. But 2009 surprisingly got me back into it. I read a little bit of the comics. I saw a little bit of the story starting to wrap up, and I was like, oh, well, I was gonna, go towards a finale, final battle, whatever you want to call it. So, what's gonna happen now? Send them off to another planet. What? So, Bionicle, in that point, LEGO was thinking, okay, it is still on the decline, but story-wise, maybe we could change things up. For some reason, they thought, we'll do a soft reboot of Bionicle. So that way it'll take place in another world, it'll have another plotline going, but still, ultimately, yes, it needs to get back to where it was. You're telling me it's another detour? It's more filler? Maybe? I don't know. So I still wasn't completely sold on it, at least back in the day. But I was sold on one set. I did actually get one more set before it was canceled in 2010. And that set was the Skrull. I don't remember if I got it as a gift, but whatever the case was. I got this set back in the day. I really like the design of it. The red and black work well. Excuse me. The red and black work together very well, cohesive all the way through. I love. If I thought the other guy was a Swiss Army knife with so many pointy points, this one's a Swiss Army knife in smaller set form with so many pointy points. You got shoulder blade points. You got the back of his head points or helmet or whatever. You got two ends of his spear that have points on them, both pointing in the same direction. You got the pointy spikes on his shield. You got them all, mister! But it looks really cool at the time. Something about it drew me into it. And I also did like that it changed up the torso design a bit. It actually felt like Mantax, even though I never owned it back in the day. But it still has this, different design that, and now at least now I can say it looks like it or feels like it, to create a different kind of torso. This went back a little bit to what I liked in 2007. That you had a basic canister figure, your mainline stuff that could stand out in a building system. Runner-up, though, I wanted to get back in the day, was Gresh. Not only because he's green, but the green works well. I love the way all of these, shades of green work together, how the style of the figure looks. It has that jungle vibe that works very well. And I do recommend checking out Nick on Planet Ripple because he did an amazing revamp to Gresh, even accentuating it even further. Like, doing much more than what this original figure did. I got this one long after the fact, as well as many of the other figures from 2009. But this one had some problems. I have two copies of this figure, with one of them, basically Frankenstein the two together. One of them is in great shape. The other one has broken hand, and part of his sword is broken, like the axle on it doesn't connect properly. He's got a few more pieces of this one missing, so he's in lesser condition, unfortunately. But I'm still happy that I have a complete and good condition version of him because he's fantastic looking. I really like the design all the way around. Alright, coming back up here for a bit. I'm going to talk about Atticus for a second. Because Atticus, whatever it's called, I didn't really care much for this figure back in the day. I kind of care for it now, just being part of the Skrull army, which is just nice of having like different types of figures, different rankings, if you may, of them. But this one I actually have the most care for because it was the set that brought Jang back into LEGO in his dark age. He did a whole thing on it on his blog. I think he's talked about it at random on video or live stream or so. But he did talk about it on Zanybricks.com on his blog. This set in particular was a set that he didn't really care much for. He didn't really get interested in Bionicle. He was already in a dark age before Bionicle existed. And for some reason, decided to pick up this set and use it as part of a work presentation with other Lego things. And basically got him back into building. And now we know where he is today. The rest, they say, is history. This one does have some cool glow-in-the-dark elements. I will give it that. Ranu, I don't really care much for. I'll get it for completion's sake, but honestly, not much appeals to me about him. I think I have the mask at best. That's all I can say. Tarduk is interesting in the way he looks, and one of the few times of having like a it's almost monkey-like, because it's like he could stand up on two legs, but other times he could crawl on all fours. So it is interesting on that merit. Pointy, 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 point all around. It also reminds me of Purik, which was an earlier 2006 Bionicle figure, because of all these claws. And in green. Barracks is okay. He's got some cool parts here and there, especially the flame piece in blue. I do like that. He's got the helmet, which is a cool shape, and having it in blue, and later it'll be in red. I always thought this was some kind of really thin shield, but I guess it's better for me to think of it as just a long staff piece, because many other figures up to this point in Bionicle had staff pieces like that. I mean, prime examples of that could be around 2003, 2004, give or take, where you could have two separate weapons as one long staff. It makes sense, at least to me. Metis is one of the villains of the year, and he's got good parts. He looks okay. Again, not much to write home about. Definitely not a fan of these pieces still. But I do like the snowflake shield piece, and later that would be used across someone's shoulder blades, which is really cool. I still don't have Zesk, but I do like him at least standing out from the rest. He has more of the animalistic, like scorpion-like nature to him. It might actually be cool with multiples of them, but I'm just saying, like, it would be cool pairing them together, but I don't know if I'd personally get more than one of this figure. I don't remember any of them that I've bought intentionally to have multiples. I just kind of have them by accident. Like, oh, I have 6 Nui Rama by chance, because I only needed 2 of them, because they only come in 2 per set. Or whatever. The Borak maybe is an exception to that. Those would be cool to have multiples of for making a swarm. But I digress. Malum. He's pretty well built. He's well put together. Very standard build. But kind of like Karapar, you get the sense of bulk out of him. You get the sense of brute force that comes with this figure. And I do like some of the claw pieces in there as well. The helmet's kind of a cool design. The one thing I would like to change, though, as the set itself, these shoulder blades, too big. They should rather be on the feet, and the feet pieces can go up here instead. It would work better for posing, but it would also work better for the overall structure of it. So that way, it's not like he missed a leg day or anything. At least he has something down here to accommodate, but still having the bulk of it up here, it would just work a bit better. And again, Nick on Planet Ripple did an amazing revamp of him from the ground up. So check that one out as well on YouTube. I already talked about Gresh. Talax is there. He's fine. He reminds me that some of the masks in this series were very small because they changed the head shapes, and they're much slimmer than other ones, so it's, I don't know, sometimes it looks a bit off to me, and this one in particular does. I think I have 2 copies of this set, with one nearly complete and one much less complete. I will give it also being a bit different in design. Strack I would like to get, because he's got some really cool pieces all the way around. I do like the way the torso was shaped here to make more of a like hinged look to him, even though you can't actually move this torso. The axe piece is really cool in ice flavoring, whatever you want to call it. I might just have the mask, helmet, whatever. And Vorox, again, has that scorpion vibe, but in a larger figure, which is pretty neat. Open pins aren't really my favorite part of it. They're just there, but that's easy to fix. And it looks pretty well composed. I would have liked if there was a little bit more brown to the color scheme than just tan, but I think he still works pretty nicely. And then we got the second wave of figures. Stronius, I feel like I've had this figure, but I know that I haven't because I've worked in STEM classes. I've worked in different programs with kids, and we had like big bins of Hero Factory and Bionicle pieces that got mushed together. So many times I saw these armor pieces from Stronius, and I had no idea how to build with them. I'm not gonna lie. I still don't know exactly how they go together in composing this figure, but I give it credit that such a big piece is used in multiple and still pulls off a good brute look. Again, part of the Skrull army. I would like the club piece as well. That would be very cool. And the spikes that have already existed also work nicely with him too. So it is kind of fun how Knights Kingdom pieces have gone over into Bionicle. Sometimes the opposite. But nowadays, people actually integrate Knights Kingdom pieces very well with Bionicle figures, whether or not making knight-like appearances out of them. So I'll give it credit. I don't have many of the Knights Kingdom figures outside of the first wave, but there's good parts nonetheless. Akar is pretty basic. I think I actually had 2 copies of him from bulk lots, and then I tore one of them apart towards a mock. So it was just a good use of orange pieces, and still have some left over. And it was incomplete anyway, so it's fine. But I do have one of these complete. Again, still has the head piece that's in a nice color. I would like to use that for other things later down the way. But yeah, pretty good all the way around. Vastus is a very interesting design of a figure using leg pieces that are less common after their original appearance. It's got a lot of dark green and sometimes lime green in the color scheme. It covers up a bit more down here than up here. The staff piece is very interesting. I do like the blade piece on it. I think I have an extra of that I could use for mock building. So it is pretty interesting on how this one, goes together and is shaped around it, having this snake-like appearance to him all the way through. Cohesive. Kina is one that I definitely like to get at some point. Definitely has a unique torso build. I definitely like how that comes together. And there are some nice pieces in here in medium blue or so. I think it's medium blue. And I think I only have the helmet. I do also like the trident pieces too. Oh, I also like the webbing, which was fairly new at this point because of Atlantis. Which honestly, I think that's another reason why I didn't really get back into Bionicle, was because I had already moved on by this point. Like, I was already into other LEGO themes in general every year, but even more so by this point because you had Power Miners, Pirates, and Atlantis. Big hitters. Great sets all the way around. But it did incorporate in Atlantis some of these web pieces for one of the sets, a Shadow Snapper, which is basically a big sea turtle. And it had them in black. And a great number of them, like 8 or 9 of them. But yeah, so I do identify that here. And Jellu. And this one looks okay. Interesting of having dark blue in the color scheme. It's kind of a flop here, because dark blue is the main color for this character, but dark blue is the accent color for this one. So I find that interesting on its own. And the fact that he uses the snowflake pieces, like I said before, it's armor. It looks pretty cool. I like the look of the mask. I like the sword pieces. He's got a good aesthetic going. Even though I would probably want to use that for mock building more than just as this character. I don't know anything about this character. Many of these I probably don't know anything. Karzahni are really cool. The colors are great. And Bubba Bricks, welcome to the stream. We're actually almost done here. A little bit more to go. I did get Motonui long after the fact, and I think I have spare parts of him, which is neat. I do have an extra of his mask that got unfortunately crushed. I got him used, and it was like crushed inward. It's not great, unfortunately. But I am happy to at least have the figure and have good representation. I would have liked, though, if that mask itself was not so tiny. Like I said before, some of these were, because it made a smaller head, they had smaller masks to make with them. Probably production cost, cutting measure or whatever. I would have liked it if it was the same size as the previous one and then the later one. Just to have it in that color. But people 3D print masks now, so it might be manageable. Pharaoh and Skirmix. I've actually rebuilt this one recently. I mean, I've had it for a while, got it built, and then I took him apart, and then I rebuilt him earlier this year. And he's fun. It's a Bionicle dinosaur, like a T-Rex dinosaur. Like, I don't know how else to describe that. I don't know what else to tell you about that. It's a very formidable build. It's got a lot of technical base to it, but it still works very well. He stands up very impressively well. And the figure on top is a little bit on the generic side, but again, an army builder nonetheless. Would have liked if they add a little bit more with him, but it's fine for what it is. The main show is pretty good, though. I don't have Tuma. I think I only have his mask, and he's not high on the wanted list, but eventually I'm sure I'll pick him up. But he's not something that I'm immediately drawn to. I don't even know if he's that good of a build. He does have some things that remind me of Hero Factory just by looking at him, but beyond that, I'm not really intrigued. I'd like to think that maybe this is a little too bulky on the tops, but I don't know for sure, having never owned it. And then we go into vehicles. So, come on, spinning ball. Don't need to get all the Bionicle sets. Yeah, definitely, Sebastian. Come on, load. Why, oh why, oh why is it spinning? Okay, I thought the screen froze for a second. Well, if we can't zoom in on them, I might have to just do it from here. No, I can't refresh the page. Not letting me do that.